Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Alien Protocols, the Advanced Protocols Data Project. So I wanted to follow up on the recent video I did about symbols found on UFO craft, because I think it's really fascinating, and there seems to be some reoccurring themes here. And I'm not certain whether these are aspects of human psychology or whether they are real aspects of the nature of this phenomena. So I'm not sure if it's more human or more alien, these repeating symbols. So first of all, just psychologically, it's very understandable for human beings to put symbols on things, on objects, specifically, types of symbols that lead to a sense of understanding. Humans like to label things. We like to demark, And so I think, there is a possibility that some of this stuff could be cultural and a very natural function of human thinking. But on the other hand, if this phenomena is, as we believe it is, real, that these symbols could mean something. There's a really weird thing going on with triangles and different events. As you see, this is the Utsubune on the right, the famous story about the woman from the sea who came in this little craft here. And on the craft, there are these symbols, and the symbols are very different than Japanese writing. They're very obviously geometric and very symbol-like. And on the left is the Rendlesham Forest one. And you can see how the triangle is very similar with the circles crossing over. Very, very, very similar. But it's also similar to the bottom of the Nazi bell, Da Galuka, and also the Kecksburg acorn. Both were shaped very similar and also had symbols running across the bottom. We don't have reliable, of course, information on either of these two cases in terms of the symbol writing. There's a lot more evidence for the Kecksburg acorn than there is for the Nazi bell, despite numerous ancient aliens episodes. On the bottom of the screen there are images from the I-beam from Roswell. I don't know if those are accurate depictions or not. But here's a real ancient, one of the ancient documents from around 1803 of this Utsubune story. And they always describe the craft exactly the same, with this brass metallic bottom, which is very similar. Brass is very golden and shiny, And Artsy Dude brought up a really interesting idea that these may not be, on the Utsubune case, they never see it fly. So he thought maybe they're from under the sea, which made a lot of sense to me and was a really interesting conjecture. Artsy Dude is always bringing that powerful creative director brain. Also on the left-hand side here, you can see the symbols. You can see the symbols there, those three symbols. But there's a lot more symbols, of course, in UFO history and in UFO cases. Let's dive in and check out some more. Of course, so that's Kecksburg. This is a really interesting case, the Lonnie Zamora case. Do you guys remember Lonnie Zamora, the police officer in, I believe it was Socorro, New Mexico, I believe it is. And he saw the craft and everything lifting off, and it had a red symbol on the side of it. And this was the symbol. It looked very much like that. This is the symbols from Rendlesham, the actual drawings from the witness. I don't think it was Peniston. I can't remember who drew it. But look at that circle with the triangle in it and the other circles. Fascinating. So this is an interesting case from the investigator Sheehan, who is looking at the National Archives and found a picture, a real picture of a craft crashed into the snow. And he wasn't, of course, able to take the picture, so he could only draw it. And that's what he saw, and those were the symbols that were on the side. Very interesting line symbols there, very language like. There's more of the Tsibune ones. Look at that on the right. Don't those look a lot like the Rendlesham ones? Very, very similar. And now these are the I-beam ones, and that's the witness statement. So that's probably as close as we're going to get to the symbols on the I-beam. Now this is a really, really interesting case. This is a repeating symbol that was seen in a bunch of incidents. And this is actually from a picture from Spain. This is the famous one in the 1960s, Madrid, Spain. And this craft and these symbols, this exact H with the line down the center of it, was seen in multiple cases. It was also seen in Voronezh, the famous Voronezh, Russia cases. Let me see if I've got the picture of the Voronezh case. Oh, here we go. Here's Voronezh. Look at the craft there on the left in the center with the H symbol on it. And they were also saying how these giant robot guys with the rod had the H symbol thing on the belt. And there were multiple witnesses for this case, a lot of witnesses. So this symbol seems to be really interesting. We might be able to class certain races strictly by the language that's on the craft. That's a classification possibility. So this is the actual drawing from Lonnie Zamora. And that is the symbol. Really, really interesting. That's the insignia. So I want to go back to this thing really quickly. That's H symbol. Now, really quickly, this is the Enoch language, Enochian language. If you look on the left, those symbols are very similar to, like that female symbol is exactly like one of the Utsibune symbols. Right here was that female one. Oh, there's a female symbol there, Utsibune, second from the bottom. Anyway, so let me read this thing to you guys about this Ume group. It's really interesting how in the 60s, they were thriving in Spain in the surrounding area. And these were people who got together and they were basically channeling this group of people from the planet, I think it was Uma. Oh, here we go. In the 60s, we had the emergence of the Uma phenomenon in Spain, which is the symbol, which is when that symbol I was talking about, H symbol, reached its maximum exposure. According to the information available, in 1966, a number of individuals began to receive letters from a supposed alien race claiming to come from a planet named Umo. These letters had that beard symbol and provided information about life on planet Umo and blah, 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 blah. So Umo, the planet Umo, fascinating how there are numerous repeated reports. It reminds me too how in the airship days, there were numerous reports of a airship landing and a guy getting out and saying he was from Goshen, New York, and his name was Mr. Wilson, I believe it was. And he said that to several different people. There's like 5 different cases of that. So it's interesting, some of these repeating cases in short time periods in one geographic location. But I'm wondering a few things about all of these incidents. When you look at them and you start looking at the symbols, you see a lot of similarities. Now, this is a symbol from a person who was abducted in the 70s and drew this, I think, in the 80s. And this was the symbol that was on everyone's shirt, all the apparent aliens on board the craft. And there's actually a lot of patches apparently seen and descriptions of patches. And literally about, 30% of them seem to have triangle circles in them. So anyway, a lot of interesting things to consider when thinking about symbols, gang, right? Like different groups of symbols could be representative of a primary race's language. And we might be able to classify races by the language and by the symbolism. Or it could all be BS. I don't think so, though, my friends. Do you? Well, what do you think? Please leave your comments below. Much love to you and yours.